Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into something I know a lot of you have been asking about,
Yeah, definitely.
finding a soulmate,
hmm
and specifically, whether or not focusing your search within a church community
Right.
is the way to go.
Absolutely.
So we're diving into this source that one of you lovely listeners shared with us that explores the biblical perspective on love community and the purpose of the church.
Great source.
It makes some really interesting points.
Yeah.
What do you think
Mm.
is like the biggest misconception people have about finding love in the church?
Oh, that's a good one. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the church is like
Yeah.
some kind of matchmaking service,
Right.
like divinely ordained.
Right. Like you just show up and boom, soulmate
That's it.
magically
Yeah.
appears.
But our source is pretty clear on this.
Yeah.
It even uses the phrase, the church is not a marriage agency.
Yeah, that line made me laugh too. I've seen my fair share of awkward matchmaking attempts
Oh, yeah.
in church settings.
Absolutely.
But okay, so if the church isn't a dating service,
Right.
what does it actually have to do with finding a soulmate?
Well, the source really emphasizes that the church's primary purpose is spiritual growth.
Okay.
It talks about the church as the body of Christ, referencing Ephesians 4.1114.
Mm. Okay.
Have you ever thought about how all the different roles within the body of Christ actually work together?
I'll admit I usually just focus on the message during the sermon,
Yeah.
but now that you mention it,
Yeah.
I am kind of curious how this whole body of Christ concept connects to finding a soulmate.
Yeah, well, the source dives into the idea that each person has unique gifts and talents that contribute to the overall health and growth of the community. And when you're serving others and using your gifts, you're not only growing spiritually,
Right.
but you're also revealing your character in a really authentic way.
So instead of going to church with the sole purpose of finding a partner, you're actually building character and contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
And in doing that,
Mhm.
you might naturally attract someone who shares your values and sees your true self shining through.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Absolutely. It's about creating a foundation of shared purpose and genuine connection. The source even talks about the perfecting of the saints, which basically means we all help each other become better versions of ourselves, more aligned with God's purpose for our lives.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like iron sharpening iron.
Yes.
And in the process, maybe sparks fly.
Maybe. But the key is to remember that the church is primarily about fostering spiritual growth and connection with God.
Okay, so we've established that the church isn't a dating service
Right.
and that its focus is on spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
But the source also talks about how Christians should prioritize their relationship with God before seeking a partner.
Absolutely.
Why is that so important, especially when you're longing to find a soulmate?
Well, imagine you're building a house. You wouldn't start with the roof.
No. Oh, I like that.
You need a strong foundation first.
Yeah.
Your relationship with God is that foundation.
Okay, so how does having a strong foundation in your relationship with God actually help you find a soulmate?
The source explains that it's about aligning your heart with God's will. When you're seeking a partner from a place of deep connection with God, you're more likely to make choices that are in line with His plan for you.
So it's like you're tuning into a different frequency, one that's aligned with God's best for your life, including who you choose to spend it with.
Exactly. And the source even mentions Psalm 34.6, which says, "Those who look to Him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame."
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What does it mean to look to Him in the context of finding a soulmate? How did that bring clarity?
That's a great question. I think it goes beyond just praying for a spouse.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering your desires to God, seeking His guidance in all areas of your life, and trusting that His timing is perfect.
So it's not just about saying, God, please send me a husband.
Exactly.
It's more about saying, God, show me how to live a life that's pleasing to you and help me to be open to your plan for my relationships, even if it looks different than what I imagine.
Yes, exactly. It's about aligning your will with God's will and having faith that He will guide you to the right person at the right time, even if that means waiting longer than you'd like or taking a path you didn't expect.
I can see how that would be hard, especially when you feel that longing for a partner so strongly.
Yeah.
But it also sounds incredibly freeing in a way.
It is. It's about trusting that God sees the bigger picture even when we don't.
The source also talks about the importance of actively engaging in church activities, like volunteering, joining a small group, or even just attending services regularly.
Right.
How do those things fit into this whole idea of finding a soulmate?
Remember what we talked about earlier, the body of Christ and using your gifts?
Yeah.
When you're actively involved in your church community, you're not only growing spiritually, but you're also putting yourself in a position to meet other people who are doing the same.
And those are probably people who share your values and are also seeking to deepen their relationship with God.
Precisely. It creates a natural environment for connection and friendship, which can sometimes lead to something more.
So instead of going to church with a checklist of qualities you're looking for in a partner, you're going with an open heart, ready to serve and connect with others.
Exactly. And in that process, you might discover that God's plan for your love life is far more beautiful and surprising than you could have ever imagined.
Our source also mentions the idea that spiritual growth often reveals areas where we need to work on ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
That's so important. And it's not always easy, but the more we grow and become the people God created us to be, the more we attract people who are on a similar path.
So it's not just about finding someone who completes you. It's about becoming the best version of yourself so you can attract someone who complements you.
You got it. It's about aligning your inner and outer world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We-
We've talked about how the church isn't a dating service, the importance of prioritizing your relationship with God, and the role of active involvement in a church community.
And we've also talked about how spiritual growth and becoming the best version of yourself can play a huge role in attracting the right kind of person.
But there's still this nagging question of timing. How do you reconcile trusting God's timing with the very real desire to find love now?
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's something a lot of people struggle with. The source actually references a verse from Ecclesiastes 3.1, "There is a time for everything." Have you ever thought about how that applies to finding a soulmate?
I've always loved that verse, but honestly, when it comes to wanting a relationship, it can be a bit frustrating.
I hear you. But what if we reframe it? What if instead of focusing on the waiting, we focused on what we can do during this season of our lives?
That's a good point. I think that's what I've been missing. This whole time I've been thinking about finding a soulmate as the goal. What if instead I focus on becoming the kind of person who is ready for a healthy relationship whenever it comes?
Exactly. And that's what this source is all about. It's about shifting the focus from finding a soulmate to becoming the kind of person who is ready for that soulmate.
I think we should dive deeper into that. What specific steps can we take to prepare for a healthy relationship?
Let's explore that further. So we've been talking about shifting our focus from, finding a soulmate to becoming the kind of person who's ready for a soulmate.
Yeah, it's a total mindset shift. And I have to say, it's already making me feel more empowered.
Yeah, I think that's the key. It's about taking ownership of our own growth and trusting that God will meet us where we are.
So instead of sitting around waiting for our soulmate to show up, we can actively prepare ourselves for that relationship.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is that those preparations will benefit us whether we're single or in a relationship.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves, period.
Right. And the source gives some practical tips on how to do that. It talks about deepening your relationship with God through prayer, Bible study, and being part of a supportive community.
Makes sense. When you're grounded in your faith, you have a strong foundation to build upon.
The source also emphasizes the importance of self-reflection. It encourages us to examine our own beliefs, values, and patterns of behavior.
Ooh, that could be tough. But I guess it's necessary if we want to grow and attract a partner who is truly compatible with us.
It's about becoming aware of our strengths and weaknesses, our desires and fears.
And then working on those areas where we need to grow.
Right. It's about becoming more self-aware and intentional in our actions.
The source also mentions the importance of serving others. How does that tie into preparing for a relationship?
Well, when you're serving others, you're putting your focus outward instead of inward. It helps you develop empathy, compassion, and a sense of purpose beyond yourself.
And those are all qualities that make you a more attractive partner.
Exactly. Plus, when you're serving alongside others, you have the opportunity to connect with people who share your values.
I never thought about it that way. It's like finding a soulmate becomes a byproduct of living a life that's focused on something bigger than yourself.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about aligning your actions with your values and trusting that God will work out the details.
This whole conversation has really shifted my perspective. I used to think finding a soulmate was all about being in the right place at the right time. But
And while there's certainly an element of timing involved, it's also about being the right person.
yeah, the source even mentions the idea of attracting the right person rather than finding them. What do you think that means?
I think it goes back to what we were saying about becoming the best version of ourselves. When you're living a life that's aligned with your values and purpose, you naturally radiate a certain energy that attracts like-minded individuals.
So it's not about trying to force anything or manipulate situations.
Hmm.
It's about creating the conditions for a healthy, fulfilling relationship to blossom.
Exactly. It's about becoming a magnet for the kind of love you desire.
I love that analogy. So how do we actually become that magnet? What specific steps can we take?
Well, we've already touched on some of them. Deepening your relationship with God, serving others, and working on your personal growth are all key.
But is there anything else we can do to actively attract the right person into our lives?
The source emphasizes the importance of clarity. It suggests taking time to really define what you're looking for in a partner.
You mean like making a list of qualities and values that are important to me?
Yes, but it goes beyond just surface-level characteristics. It's about identifying the core values that are non-negotiable for you.
So things like faith, integrity, kindness, a sense of humor.
Exactly. Those are the things that will truly matter in the long run.
Okay, so I have my list of non-negotiables. What's
Yeah.
next? Do I just post it on social media with the hashtag Soulmate search?
Huh. I don't think that's quite what the source had in mind. It's more about aligning your actions with your desires. If you're looking for someone who is kind and compassionate, be that person yourself.
So it's about embodying the qualities you're seeking in a partner.
Precisely. It's about becoming the kind of person you want to attract.
I love that. It's like the law of attraction, but for relationships.
Exactly. And it all starts with being honest with yourself about what you truly desire, and then taking steps to align your life with those desires.
This is so empowering. I'm starting to feel like I have a lot more control over my love life than I thought.
You do. Remember, you're not just passively waiting for your soulmate to appear. You're actively creating the conditions for that soulmate to find you.
It's like we're building a beautiful garden and trusting that God will bring the butterflies.
What a beautiful image. And as we cultivate that garden, we're also growing ourselves, which is the most important thing of all.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I have a whole new framework for thinking about finding love, but there's one thing I'm still wrestling with. How do we know when we've met the one? Is there some kind of divine sign or signal?
That's a question for the ages, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
But our source does offer some guidance, right?
It does, and I think it's time we dig into that.
Yeah. So we've been talking about all these amazing ways to prepare ourselves for a soulmate,
Yeah.
deepening our faith, serving others, working on our personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
and even becoming a magnet for the love we desire.
Absolutely.
It's been so insightful.
Yeah.
But I think there's one question that's still lingering in the back of all of our minds. Mine too.
Yeah.
How do you know
Right.
when you've actually met the one?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And our source acknowledges that there's no magic formula or foolproof checklist,
It can be so frustrating
It is.
when you just want that certainty.
Totally. But I think the beauty of it is that it requires us to lean into faith and trust.
So instead of looking for a flashing neon sign
Yeah.
that says soulmate here,
Exactly.
we need to pay attention to those subtler cues.
The source talks about discerning God's will through prayer, seeking wise counsel from trusted mentors or friends, and paying attention to the peace you feel in your heart.
So it's a combination of inner knowing and external confirmation.
Yes. It's about seeking wisdom from multiple sources, including your own intuition.
Which can be tricky, especially when you're caught up in the excitement of a new relationship.
Yeah. That's why it's so important to have a strong foundation in your faith and a supportive community to help you navigate those feelings.
It's like having a team of spiritual advisors
Yes.
to help you discern what's truly from God
Yeah.
and what might just be wishful thinking.
That's a great analogy. The source also emphasizes the importance of looking beyond the initial spark of attraction.
So don't get swept up in the romance.
Not necessarily. It's more about taking the time to really get to know the person and see if your values and life goals are truly aligned.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that honeymoon phase and overlook those potential red flags.
Exactly. And those red flags are often easier to spot when you have a clear understanding of your own non-negotiables, those values that are essential for you in a partner.
So it's not just about how they make you feel, it's about how they align with your core beliefs and the kind of life you want to build together.
Mm-hmm. The source even talks about looking for someone who brings out the best in you, someone who inspires you to grow spiritually and become a better person.
I love that. It's like having a partner in purpose.
Yes.
Someone who challenges you and supports you on your journey.
And someone who shares your passion for serving God and making a difference in the world.
It's amazing how this whole conversation has shifted my focus. It's not just about finding someone to complete me. It's about finding someone to walk alongside me on this incredible journey of faith and growth.
And who knows, maybe in that journey and that shared purpose, you'll discover that the person you thought you were searching for was right there beside you all along.
Ugh, that gives me chills. It's like the universe has a way of orchestrating these things, bringing people together at just the right time.
But it's not just about leaving it all up to fate.
Yeah.
It's about actively preparing ourselves, becoming the best versions of ourselves, and trusting that God will do the rest.
This deep dive has been a game changer. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to find a soulmate.
Me too.
And it's not just about romance. It's about so much more.
It's about faith, purpose, growth, and a love that transcends the superficial.
Well said. And I think it's safe to say that our listener is walking away with a lot to ponder.
I hope so. I encourage you to take some time to reflect on everything we've discussed and see how it resonates with your own heart.
Remember, you're not alone on this journey. God is with you every step of the way, guiding you towards the love and the life that He has planned for you.
And we're here to support you in that journey, providing you with the insights and resources you need to dive deeper into the topics that matter most to you.
So until next time, keep diving deep.